I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a healer. I am a professor of philosophy. I have had no training at all about any kind of healing or energetic therapy. So my knowledge is zero in my mind. Can you believe that every week Sai Baba was guiding me inwardly, giving to me a program of healing for the week with sophisticated instructions.
A story of miracles about Sri Satya Sai Baba, recorded in an interview in December of 2008 at Sai Baba's ashram in Puttaparthi, India. Welcome to Sai Souljourns. This is part one of the story of Professor Dr. Albert Ferrer from Barcelona, Spain, whose doctorate is in philosophy and whose interest in Sai Baba has grown broadly in recent years.
Let me just begin by asking you how you found yourself actively on your spiritual path. What age were you, and what prompted you to start a spiritual inquiry, spiritual path?
Well, there was always some kind of research, more at the intellectual level, made it easier due to my work on philosophy. But it became something more of direct experience around 10 years back.
How old are you now?
Now 40, so I was 30.
Mm-hmm. And what was it 10 years ago that started this sense of interest?
Well, there was a change in my life. Even though I was born in Barcelona, I was educated in a French school in Barcelona. So I started my college studies in Barcelona at the Spanish university. But for postgraduate studies, I wanted to go to Paris, attracted by my own primary and secondary education in a French school. So I did my PhD in Paris. Then at 30, I finished PhD, doctorate in Paris, and I came back to Spain. And this was a shift in my life. I finished PhD, so I had to start working as an adult for the first time. Until 30, I was a long-term student. So at 30, I should start working really in the academic field as a young lecturer. And I was moving again from Paris to Barcelona to my original place. So it was a period of change in my life. And there were some personal problems. So it was not an easy, it was not an easy time for all these reasons. And it was the beginning of these spiritual experiences was something totally unexpected and sudden. One day I went to the countryside near Barcelona, in a place where we have a nice natural park, just at the foot of the Pyrenees. And I went for a walk in the countryside in the evening. Now I realize that it was a perfect time, the evening, which in all the spiritual traditions is a very, very powerful period of the day. And I remember that at some point I stopped in my walk and I started looking at the moon. It was full moon. And it was April. It was the full moon of April, which now I know is a very powerful full moon. I started looking at the full moon, and then something extraordinary happened for the first time in my life. I started losing the sight of the empirical world. I had some big trees just in front of me. I didn't see the trees. I thought, but it was extraordinary and
you
unbelievable.
Could see through the trees?
No, I had some big trees in front of me. I didn't see the trees. Mm-hmm. And I had the natural park, the hills in front of me. I was losing the sight of the hills. I didn't see anything. I thought I was becoming blind, which was absolutely unbelievable because I never had any problems of this kind. But not only this, I was feeling a tremendous explosion of energy in myself, within myself. It was like myself becoming a power central.
Did it scare you?
At the beginning, for a very, very short time, I was scared, but very, very quickly this fear disappeared and I just surrendered to what was happening, feeling that it was good. Very, very soon I didn't see anything of the empirical world. I had big trees in front of me, I didn't see them. I had mountains in front of me, I didn't see them. I didn't see anything. I totally lost contact with the empirical world. I didn't feel my body. It was also like feeling the own sensation of the body, and it was like a darkness, like a total black. There was nothing, and very, very soon in this darkness, a spot of light started shining.
And what was that?
It was like a star, like a white star. And very, very quickly, this star grew in size, and very, very soon, everything was the star of light. Everything was light. It was like a source of, like the source of light. It was the most beautiful light we could ever imagine. Human eyes, the physical eyes, have never seen this light. It was, in the language we have here now, I would say it was white, but white is nothing which can describe this light. It was like fire, but fire is not a word which is suitable to describe this light.
Very intense white light.
Intense, sure, but I would say the highest beauty you could ever imagine. And there was no shape, no form. It was just beautiful. It was pure beauty.
How long did this last?
I couldn't tell you exactly. All what I remember is that when I came back to the ordinary state of consciousness, 2 hours had passed.
And then what happened?
But it was not only the light, it was an experience, a living experience in the light, and I would say it was life, just life.
Just life.
In the light, there was a quality of love which we don't experience in human relationships. This light was love, but again, an intensity, a purity, a beauty of love which is not experienced in the ordinary relationships we have. And it was also joy. It was like a volcano throwing joy, an endless joy. Much more profound than any sentiment, any feeling of happiness we have in the normal state of consciousness.
Did you think for a second this might be God?
Do you know what I could tell you? This word was never there.
Never.
When I came back, I thought what you are saying now. But then, this word was never there. And I would tell you that this word is also not suitable to describe what was there.
So, what do you think
but
it
of
is?
Course, now I should say, this light, which was not only light, but the highest beauty you could ever imagine, which was total love, pure joy, happiness. It was also consciousness. It was somebody. It was a consciousness. I should say only consciousness. And there was a feeling, a sensation, a thought. I don't know how to say it. That I was aware of myself. So I was myself, and there was this light, which was love and happiness and joy and peace, and it was also a consciousness. But there was no separation, no distinction at all between this light and myself. It's very difficult to explain it in the language we have, in the words we have.
Did you have a background of spirituality or religion to draw from to help you explain what this experience was?
Well, I was a student of philosophy, so I knew very well only the Western tradition, because Europe is still very narrow-minded, so I was never taught Indian philosophy until PhD, but I had the knowledge of European philosophy. So when I came back from this experience, and this experience was repeated several days, many days, for a long period of time. For several months it was coming regularly, many times. I had a friend who was a distinguished, world-known professor of philosophy, Professor Dr. Raymond Panikkar. He's world-known. He's a professor of mystical philosophy. And when I finished my PhD, I started talking with him about my interest in Indian philosophy, and he guided my postdoctoral research. So the first thing I did after the experience was phoning him and going to the Pyrenees, to a small village in the Pyrenees, to explain to him the experience. And I can tell you that this professor of comparative philosophy, mystical philosophy, 80 years old, had tears in his eyes when he was listening to me. And I remember very well his main suggestion. He said, never try to put words to the experience. And don't try to classify it. Don't use all your knowledge of academic philosophy to describe it. Leave it as it was.
It's impossible to describe.
Yeah, it's impossible. And he told me, since you are a poet also, I write poetry, I have had poetry prizes, he said to me, when you want to write about this, do it through poetry. Don't do it through philosophy.
Let me put you on the spot, and it's perfectly okay to say no. Is there any poem that you have that you can recite from memory in English that captures this right now?
I don't have so much good memory for poetry.
Okay, I don't either.
But I would tell you that from my study of English poetry, when I came back from this experience, and it was repeated, I said, so after some time this was a common experience for me. What would come back to my memory very easily would be the poetry of Wordsworth. Mm-hmm. So many experiences in Wordsworth poetry. This would be the closest to me.
It's amazing how a combination of just several words can evoke almost a heavenly understanding that goes far beyond the significance of those several words. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a student of poetry and I really appreciate that. So this happened not just once, but quite a few times over a 6-month period?
More months, almost 1 year, maybe 8-9 months.
Did it just stop?
No, it didn't stop like this. After almost 1 year, maybe a little bit less than 1 year, it started going down little by little.
And your professor friend, did he give you any other advice other than to not try to put words to it?
See, well, after some months, when we saw that this naturally was going down, it would become less and less frequent, less intense. He told me, he warned me, don't try to grasp it. Don't try to provoke it. Don't run after it. Leave it. It has come. If it goes, leave it. Let it go happily. When it must come back, it will come back. Don't try to produce it artificially again. Mm-hmm. This advice was very powerful from his side.
Then, since that time, when it started to taper off and stop, when did you start to pursue it from not just an academic or philosophical perspective, but from a mystical, spiritual perspective? When did you start to have a yearning to learn more about your own sense of spirituality?
Well, this started even before this experience.
Okay.
When I was doing PhD, I made my PhD on romanticism. Mm-hmm. So I got acquainted with all the mystical experiences of the romantics through my PhD. And then also the interest for India started coming. So already at that time I was trying to understand this dimension, this deep, profound dimension we have inside. But after these experiences, the pursuit, the academic pursuit of understanding these kind of experiences was stronger. And then I started, for my own work, I started studying Indian philosophy. Mm-hmm. So then I really tried to find an understanding, an explanation from the side of Indian philosophy about all what I was living. And I found it very easily.
And what did you find?
I found in Vedanta, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, of Ramakrishna, many clear explanations about what I was living. Even it was amazing. I remember one day I was reading Yoga Vashishta, which is included in the Ramayana, and I found a description of the source of light coming as a star exactly as I had lived from the very first day. So in Indian philosophy I found everywhere clear explanations of what I was experiencing.
Nothing among the Christian mystics or philosophers? It was strictly Indian philosophy that...
Well, academically I was focused on Indian philosophy. I started teaching on Indian philosophy, so I had to do research on Indian philosophy. So I started with Indian philosophy just for professional reasons. But of course, very, very soon I wanted to see the same kind of mystical approach in my original European tradition, both the Greek and the Christian. And I started studying Greek philosophy in depth from the mystical point of view and Christian mystical philosophy.
Is this an appropriate time to ask you where, how, and when Sri Satya Sai Baba comes into the picture?
Yes, it's a wonderful moment to talk about him. He came into the picture after 2 years, or around 2 years after the first experience. So at the time when I still had this kind of beautiful experience, but it was going down gradually and slowly. And he came to my life through a first dream. Being a professional of education, I had a first beautiful dream where I was sitting in a classroom as a student with other adults, no children, adults. And he came in after some time as a teacher. And when he came into the classroom as a teacher, he pointed at me, and then I could hear his voice within myself saying, "From now onwards, I will guide you.
From now on, I will guide you.
And you will come to me."
Did you know who that person was in your dream?
When I had this dream, I knew little about him, very little. When I came back from Paris to Barcelona, I had heard about him from some people, but very little. And I had never read anything yet. I had seen some books in some bookstores, that's all.
But you had seen his picture to recognize him in your dream?
Sure, yes. But I didn't know almost anything. I knew that there was one spiritual master in India called Sai Baba. I knew his physical image, that's all. And I had a dream. Then I started looking for some books and reading.
Because of that one dream?
After the dream, I started buying some books and reading.
So you took it seriously, that dream had great value, had great meaning for you?
Very seriously.
And then what?
Then I came to Puttaparthi.
After how much time of reading on?
Some months. Only some months.
Did you, in the interim, before coming to Puttaparthi, had you familiarized yourself with anybody in Spain or France who were followers of Sai Baba? Or did you come on your own?
Before coming to Puttaparthi, I started going to the Sai Center in Barcelona.
Okay.
There is one Sai Center in Barcelona. I learned about it. When I started buying some books, I learned about this Sai Center. It was very near my house also, so
really?
It was very easy. And I started going there. But maybe I went several times. It was not so important. Of course, there some people talked to me about Sai Baba, so I got more information. And I remember I spoke to Professor Panikkar about this, and he suggested me to go.
So after that suggestion, you decided to come here for the first time?
Well, I had already decided by myself to go, but Professor Panikkar helped me to confirm my decision. He said very clearly to me, and some other people, very spiritual, told me, this is clearly the call of a master, so you must go. It would be a big mistake not to go. So I came to India. It was not the first time. I had already come to India a couple of times or 3 times. I came at the end of January, beginning of February. I went to Chennai, which I already knew. I spent a few days in Chennai just to be familiar with the weather. In Europe it was snowing. In Chennai it was 30 degrees, like full summer. So I stayed in Chennai some days to be acquainted with the Indian climate and food. And then I came to Puttaparthi.
What year, more or less, was this?
So,
what year was this?
So this was like 8 years back.
2000.
2000, around 2000. Yes.
So when you came to Puttaparthi that first time, did you have expectations of meeting him? Did you think he would talk to you? What were your expectations?
No expectations at all. At that time, Sai Baba was giving many interviews. And he was materializing many things for many people. So among devotees, especially foreign devotees, there were many expectations. I hope that Swami will give me an interview, or he will make a watch for me, a ring. So many people had expectations. I didn't have at all, because I didn't give any importance to these kind of things.
So what happened?
So I came just to see him. I thought I wouldn't have interview, and I didn't have. And I didn't need it. I just wanted to have the experience of his physical presence.
Did you get very close to him?
I got very good rows. In fact, I was on first line many days. Otherwise, 2, 3, third, second, third, fourth. I was always very, very close to the passage, which was left for him.
Did he look at you?
He looked at me directly, profoundly, many times.
Did he take letters?
He took one letter. I only showed one letter to him, and he took it.
Do you remember what you said in the letter?
It was 8 years back. The important thing is the experience I had.
And what was that experience?
It was around the 3rd, 4th day. I stayed here for 3 weeks, almost the whole February. And at the beginning of my stay, it was maybe the 3rd or 4th day, no more than this, he came in for darshan. I was naturally looking at him. And again, this kind of experience, which started 2 years before, was coming. So I was losing the sensation of the empirical world, and I was totally focused on him. And I started seeing very clearly his aura around him. Naturally, I had already seen the aura of human beings several times, without looking for it. I maybe influenced by panic, I was not looking for this kind of experiences. They were just naturally happening. This was always very important in my life. I never did anything special for having these experiences. They came naturally. For Swami, for Sai Baba also, I didn't force anything to see anything in him. It happened. And what happened was seeing his aura. And as I said, I had seen the aura of some human beings before, and it was totally different. It was first much wider and much brighter. And very soon this aura started expanding, and it became like waves of light from the center he was. And these waves of light were taking all the people which were sitting there. And these waves of light which were coming out of him were again love, the most profound, the strongest, the most powerful love you could imagine, and beauty and joy and endless joy. I was crying.
Do you still see his aura today?
No, not again. I have not seen again. So this happened, and something amazing that day, after seeing this aura which became like a sea, an ocean of light and love, which I was embracing all the people there. After this, I saw very clearly, like a ball like this, like a football ball of white light, very intense light, at his back, at the level of the shoulders. It was like a football ball, like this size, white, shining, very strong, and it was following him at his shoulder.
It wasn't attached level to his back, it was
no,
behind.
not attached. There was something like 50 centimeters gap, something like this. I was amazed. Can you believe me? Maybe 2 years later, when I was in Europe, one day in Sai Center, they showed to me a picture of Swami. There was this ball of light at his back. The ball of light I had seen with my eyes in Prashanti Nilayam in the ashram, and it was something quite unbelievable for me. What's this? I didn't understand. One day in Europe, in Sai Center, I saw a photograph. There was this ball of light behind him.
Wow. That's remarkable.
And this kind of experience with him, seeing his aura becoming an ocean of light, embracing all the human beings, this experience, he allowed me to have it for 4 or 5 days. It was the first day, and then it was followed by several days.
Then I understand, somewhere along the line, since that first encounter of seeing his form until today, he guided you in person.
Yes.
To a teacher of meditation, Japanese teacher.
Well, can you imagine what happened after all these experiences?
What?
What came in my life? Illness.
Illness.
Totally normal. After 2-3 years of having these experiences and coming to see Sai Baba and seeing, experiencing this aura, this ocean of light coming from him. After these 3 years, what happened in my life? Illness.
And what form of illness?
Well, medical doctors still today don't know what happened. And I must say, my father is a medical doctor, chief of a department in the best hospital of Barcelona, in the most prestigious hospital of Barcelona, private hospital. So when the symptoms started, I was checked by the most eminent medical doctors of Barcelona, which is the capital city of medicine in Spain, and one of the capital cities for medicine in the whole Europe. So in Barcelona we have the best medicine of Europe. So I was checked by very good doctors. They were totally lost.
What were your symptoms?
It started as a pain in the knees, very meaningful. The knees have a deep energetic meaning. They mean the roots in this world. It started as pain in the knees, but very soon it developed as pain in the whole body and a total paralysis. So after 1 year of the first symptoms, I was in a chair, totally paralyzed. I couldn't walk from this chair to the door.
And nobody knew what it was.
And doctors were totally lost. They didn't know what happened.
How long did this last?
So, from the first symptoms until what I will explain now happened, it was like 1.5 years, getting worse and worse until total paralysis. Being totally rejected by traditional medicine, by conventional medicine. They didn't know what to do because they didn't understand what was happening. So they couldn't do anything. And I was in the chair paralyzed. So after 1.5 years, roughly 1.5 years, something extraordinary happened. And on a very special night, today it's December 3rd, so it was the Christmas period, the end of Christmas period. It was the night of January 5th, which is the Epiphany for the Catholic world, and the Christmas, and the true Christmas for the Eastern tradition. So on this holy night, January 5th, Sai Baba came to my room in Spain, in Barcelona.
In person?
In person.
In a dream?
Not in a dream. I explained to you. I was sleeping in this horrible state. I thought I would die. I was paralyzed, full of pain. Doctors didn't know what they could do with me, so I thought, this is the end, I will die. And in fact, I was looking for death because it was impossible to live in this condition. So I thought the best what can happen is that I die. So this holy night, January 5th, I was sleeping. And I physically felt that somebody touched me here on the right shoulder 3 times. I physically felt it. And I heard one voice on the right ear saying to me in my local language, which is Catalan language, which is not Spanish, Albert, open eyes.
Albert,
exactly these words in the local language, Catalan. Albert, open eyes. And I opened eyes. Then naturally I turned my head towards the door, which was at the right side, and like in a romantic fairy tale, the door opened itself, as in a fairy tale. And can you imagine who was standing up on the edge of the door?
It gives me goosebumps.
Sai Baba. He was standing up at the edge of the room.
And what did you say?
And I was looking at him. He appeared as a lighthouse.
A lighthouse?
He was showing light, and light was coming from him. So looking frontally at him, I could see very well his silhouette. But it was, if you look at a lighthouse, or when you look at somebody who brings a torch,
you can't see behind it.
You can see very well the details of the body. You see very well the silhouette, but the silhouette is like darkened by the light which is coming from it.
But it was unmistakably Sai Baba,
It was him,
with the light emanating from his chest.
It was him. There was no doubt. I recognized him immediately. And then, for the first time in my life, I heard his voice within myself, inside. And it was amazing because he said, the first words he said were, Albert, don't worry. Don't worry.
You will be all right.
Of course he said that also. And then he gave a very simple explanation. He said, all what is happening is but a spiritual process.
All that's happened is but a spiritual process.
A spiritual process. He said very clearly, all what is happening is but a spiritual process. It is mainly a process of cleansing. What do we say? Karma. Things from the past. And he said immediately, don't worry when I say karma, because when we say karma, everybody is thinking, oh, what wrong things, bad things I have done in the past. He said, nothing like this. You haven't done anything wrong, anything bad. It's cleansing the lack of roots in your past lives. In many lives, you were searching for the light, you were meditating, doing yoga, living in monasteries, because you were always looking for the light, for going upwards. And you were forgetting the roots on the planet Earth. And you didn't want to be in this planet Earth with all the evil that you saw on this planet Earth. So this was your karma. You didn't want to stay on the planet Earth because you couldn't understand all the evil on the planet Earth, and you wanted to go to the light. But you were on the Earth. This is your karma. Lack of roots on the planet Earth. This is what you must clean. And this is what is happening.
This is why the pain...
And he said, this is what is happening. And then he said, but you are incarnated. You are on a physical body. So all what is happening has an energetic dimension, he said. And this energetic process is affecting your physical body because you are incarnated, you are in a physical body. That's why you cannot move, you are paralyzed, because all the energetic process which is happening is affecting the physical body because you are in a physical body, you are incarnated. That's what is happening. And that's why, and he said, that's why medical doctors don't understand anything. And then he told me, you will combine two kinds of yoga. You will practice them, one guided by one friend, the other one guided by the other friend, and you will be totally cured, and you will come back to India, you will come back to Prashant Nilayam. Here I am. So for 2 years, I had the patience of doing these two kinds of yoga combined. Like at the beginning, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, after some months, even 5 hours every day. 5 hours every day, combining these two kinds of practices, and I totally healed myself.
And who were the two friends?
One was a Sai devotee.
Really?
And he helped me by practicing what in Japan they call Katsugenundo, which is an amazing practice mainly consisting of awakening the deep, profound movement which is potential in ourselves and which is totally healing.
Which is totally
healing.
This is an Indian Spaniard, Sai devotee in Barcelona.
He's a Spanish man. He's a Sai devotee in Spain, and he had a lot of experience with this awakening of the profound movement potential in ourselves, and he helped me to awaken this movement.
And who was the other man?
And the other was a lady, a friend, who had been taught in the tradition, in the school of Marie-Lise Labonté. Maybe you know her. Marie-Lise Labonté. She's a Canadian lady from Quebec, and she has founded a school for healing called Anchma School. It comes from Quebec, Montreal, I think. But she brought this school to Paris. From Paris, she brought to Barcelona. And this friend of mine had the training in this Anchma School in Barcelona, directly from Marie-Lise Labonté and some other people. And what they do is, we could say, energetic therapy, energetic healing, but on a very sophisticated basis. In fact, it is like surgery, like light surgery, like energetic surgery. And this friend was practicing this kind of energetic surgery with me, but in connection with the Katsugenundo, so that the main thing was the self-healing of my own body, of my own energetic process.
How did you know these were the two forms of yoga that Baba wanted you?
He said,
he told you.
He told very precisely these two kinds of practices with these two people. And he said, they will not direct the process, I will direct it. And can you believe, this is really an experience to be explained to scientists. I have personally, still today, no knowledge at all about any kind of energetic healing. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a healer. I am a professor of philosophy. I have had no training at all about any kind of healing or energetic therapy. So my knowledge is zero in my mind. Can you believe that every week Sai Baba was guiding me inwardly, giving to me a program of healing for the week with sophisticated instructions.
And did the facilitators
know this? Friend who had a very sophisticated training in Anchma school was amazed. She said to me every week, the guidance you receive is perfect. The program for the week is perfect. If you were inventing it, it would be full of mistakes everywhere because you don't know anything, and you cannot invent on these kind of things because it's very serious, it's very sophisticated. You cannot invent, you cannot say things in any way. There is a protocol. You cannot do, for instance, this kind of practice before another kind of practice. It's not allowed. I was receiving a perfect guidance on a very sophisticated basis. It was perfect.
And over the course of the 2 years that you practiced both of these in harmony with one another, your physical symptoms receded.
From the very beginning.
And,
in 1 month.
And what did the people around you, your father, what did his friends say?
Well, they were amazed. They opened their minds to some other dimension of life.
And in the process of receiving this guidance from Sai Baba, how did you receive it? Inwardly, thought?
Inwardly, very easily.
Intuitively?
No, I was really hearing a voice within myself.
You were hearing a voice. And he said...
And not only this, when I received, and still today, because it still happens, now it's for life, when I receive the voice, I feel a whole energy which is coming into me, or which is blossoming from myself. And I know it's not myself.
Wonderful. So
And
this...
he has given to me so many... Sai Baba plays a lot. He's like Krishna. Can you imagine then all the leelas, as we say in India, he has done with
Leelas.
that, and all the proofs he has given to me.
And?
For instance, weather forecast. Is it possible that my mind knows the weather for months to come?
No.
It's impossible. And scientists would say it's impossible. Sai Baba has given to me the weather forecast for months, and it has happened exactly.
Has he given to you the stock market?
Not yet. Maybe because he was predicting the collapse. But it's absolutely amazing. For instance, even now he gave to me another lila some time back. Here in Puttaparthi, in South India, we had a lot of rain in July and in August. Then in September we had very little rain. Then in October we had again a lot of rain. And November started with bright sky for 10 days, and all the people I know were saying, rain is finished. Sai Baba one day, in this inward voice, told me, there will be rain again in the second half of November, and a lot.
Around his birthday.
And he said to me, it will start next Sunday. That Sunday, it rained.
Why does he tell you the weather?
To give me, still today, from time to time, absolutely scientific evidences of the reality of the guidance. So, it's not me.
They're leelas. They're beautiful, wonderful.
Leelas. But, see, I am an academician. I am a professor. I can tell these things as a professor to scientists.
Mm-hmm.
Can any scientist in the world, any materialistic scientist, can explain to me how is it possible that my mind knows with total exactitude what will the weather be when it seems to be the opposite?
Now, did I misunderstand Lakshmi, or did I hear him correctly, that there is still another teacher about meditation, or is this what he was referring to? The teacher...
He was referring mainly to the healing process. But from that day, from that time onwards, the guidance has remained, and he has been guiding me not only for consolidating the healing, but also for the spiritual practice and for my work.
May I ask you a few questions about your spiritual practice?
Please.
What form of meditation do you practice today that helps you continue to grow spiritually?
Nothing. No form, no practice.
So what?
In fact, from young age, I felt some kind of allergy to practices. And when I started reading Krishnamurti, I got a wonderful confirmation about my fault. You know Krishnamurti? He was so much against practices. I didn't feel attracted by practices. And you see, when the spiritual experiences started, my friend Raymond Panica said, don't do anything. Let it come, let it go, let it come back. Now it's coming back again. Mm-hmm. And you see, when the illness came and Sai Baba started the self-healing process, you can see Sai Baba guided a self-healing process. Nobody cured me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I cured myself. And he guided a self-healing process, And And very important, I would say the foundation of this self-healing practice was what Japanese call katsugenundo, which is awakening the profound healing movement which is potentially in ourselves. So again, it's something natural, not a specific frame or practice or with any protocol, something totally natural. So in my whole life, everything has brought me towards what is natural, what happens naturally from within, without any kind of control or manipulation. And in the guidance I have received from Baba, this has been a very clear point. For me, I don't say that this must be good for others, but for me, nothing must be controlled, nothing must be manipulated. There is no protocol at all. What is natural, what comes naturally is the best.
And you said, and now it's happening again. What's happening again?
I came back to Puttaparthi 2.5 years back, when the healing was totally consolidated. The healing was already finished, we could say, more than 3 years back. But between the end of the self-healing process and coming back to Puttaparthi, there was a period of like 6 months. I was preparing the trip to come back. So in the last 2.5 years since I came back, these so profound experiences I had 10 years back didn't come back so easily. Now in the last months, weeks, they are coming back more and more.
The light?
Yes.
The trees disappearing, the buildings disappearing?
In the mandir, sitting in the veranda in Pasyente Nilayam, I lost the sight of everything when looking at Swami. There was only Swami and the light in Swami. I was surrounded by professors, I didn't see them. I didn't see the whole huge building we have. So for the first time after 8 years maybe, this kind of experience where you go deep into another dimension of reality started again. I am receiving from Swami that this will come back as deep as in the past, but with roots in this world now, to bring it to this world.
It sounds like you do not depend on him speaking to you face to face in an interview. He already speaks to you internally much of the time.
Yes, and he has said several times that the most important interview he gives to devotees is in dreams, not on the physical level in the ashram. And he has always said to devotees that the biggest gift he can give to devotees is not the physical interview, which will happen very few times on the physical plane, but the inward guidance, which can be forever.
Are you now spiritual and grounded in earth life?
Well, now there are these roots, sure.
And what does your spiritual practice consist of?
No spiritual practice.
Not just no meditation, but no spiritual practice.
For me, meditation is a state of consciousness, not a practice.
So you are...
I wouldn't be as strong as Krishnamurti by saying that, by condemning spiritual practices. Many people need them. So I would never condemn any spiritual practice. Many people need them, but they are not in my path now.
It sounds like what you're saying is similar to what the popular writer Eckhart Tolle says about living in the now. Make
Yes.
every moment your spiritual awareness, every conscious moment.
Well, for me, it's enough to close eyes, and after some seconds, after 1 minute, what we call meditation comes. It's a state.
We're at the end
There's
of
no need of any practice.
We're at the end of the year 2008. I forgot to give the date on this. This is December 2nd or 3rd.
Third today.
And you've been here for a while. Is it okay for you to share with us recent leelas or recent miracles that you've either experienced firsthand or observed in others from Sai Baba?
From Swami. Well, I have seen several materializations in the veranda, from the veranda. He has materialized several things for several people, which is, of course, a clear sign he gives of his divinity. But the biggest gift he has given to me these last months has not been this at all. The biggest gift he has given to me these last months has been when he has talked about the world. This last month he has talked about the world several times, and he has said explicitly, clearly, that the world will totally, radically change very soon, that we will see radical changes in the coming months, years, so that after 20, 30 years, the Earth, the planet Earth, will live in unity and harmony. And this is the biggest lila, the biggest miracle that he can give to me.
And when he tells you this, as he always tells you, he guides you from within and you hear his voice telling you this. Are you surprised?
No, but when he has said that, he has said in public, in the mandir.
Oh, this is the public discourse.
In public, he said that.
Okay.
In public, he said that there will be radical change. In public, in front of thousands of people, he has said that there will be radical changes in the world in the next months and years. And after 20, 30 years, the Earth will live in harmony and unity.
So what's your job going to be? What's Albert going to do?
Well, on the empirical level, I am a professor of philosophy, comparative philosophy and philosophy of education. So I feel that Swami wants me to work on education for the rest of my life. Not only at the university level, but as a philosopher of education, to work for children also. So I have in mind several projects which I give to him, which I submit to him, and I think that I will work on education, not only giving lectures in college for PhD students, but also working for children, for children's education.
That's all very important work, very noble work. What about the spiritual accumulation of insight that you now possess? Do you have any interest or do you have any direction from Swami to share that with others?
Of course.
And how do you do that?
It is a sin to keep knowledge for oneself. Knowledge is to be shared.
Spiritual knowledge included.
Even secular knowledge. Knowledge is to be shared. In fact, it is our nature to share. When we don't share, we are going against our nature. Then we become ill.
That's why I like to be a journalist.
Very good. So I feel I receive from Swami that I must work on education for the rest of my life, and I must work on what he calls education in human values.
And you're at liberty to...
Education in human values, which is very often misunderstood. Many people think education in human values means spiritual education. It's not that at all. Swami has always said that secular knowledge is essential. So academic education is essential. And Swami wants excellence in academic education. Why? Because we are not in a high loka, in a high universe. We are on the planet Earth. My process of learning about the roots in the Earth. So Sai Baba has said very clearly, education in human values means the intimate connection between academic learning, so knowledge of the empirical world, and together with profound education from the self, the knowledge of the self, human values, spiritual education. But Swami has said the true education in human values is the connection between both, the combination of secular knowledge with excellence and profound education from the self.
I've got one last question, unless Jody has a question. My last question is, we've talked about everything but the next life. What happens after death?
We are always there. Death is just a change of dress. The consciousness we are, a consciousness which vibrates, is always there.
And do you practice Swami's idea of Advaita, of oneness?
This consciousness of oneness was coming in these experiences. And I realize now that what we call the spiritual process brings us to consolidate this in every moment of our daily life. First, it comes as a peak experience for a while, then it goes, and then you can have a very deep depression. It's normal. But what we call spiritual process sadhana in India brings about is the consolidation of this as the background, as the normal background from which you live, in which you live. And then from this oneness, you can walk in the streets, you can teach, you can work for others.
Albert, thank you very much.
It has been a pleasure.
Sai Baba.